magandang umaga from Toronto, Canada, and good evening, magandang gabi in Manila, Philippines. Welcome to the Narratives Through Global Space screening event. Today's topic is entitled Longings and Hauntings in Film Narratives. To start us off with a land acknowledgement, we have Professor Natalie Wahlberger.
We'd like to start by acknowledging the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we stand and create. In a relational spirit, we're grateful for the opportunity to carry out creative and intellectual work on Turtle Island, the present-day home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples, and respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in forging decolonial relations with Indigenous and other peoples within Turtle Island, the Philippines, and beyond. With the recognition that this talk is taking place in a virtual space and folks are joining us from various locations, I ask that you each take the time to acknowledge the rightful stewards of the land on which you're currently situated and reflect on the harms of the past and consider how we can move forward in the spirit of reconciliation.
Good morning to those of you in Canada. Sa inyong lahat sa Pilipinas, magandang gabi. My name is Anna Serrano, and I am the President and Vice Chancellor of OCAD University here in Toronto. For the next 5 days, we are gathering to watch the inaugural screening of 10 experimental short films from the unique and innovative virtual residency program, Narratives Through Global Space. I want to acknowledge that for us in Toronto, this event is taking place on the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we stand and create. It is my great honor to be welcoming you all for this inaugural screening of Narratives Through Global Space, a unique and innovative virtual residency that brought together 20 filmmakers from 9 countries spanning 5 time zones, led by 5 faculty across 3 universities, OCAD University, Mapua University, and NASCAD. I'd also like to say that it's particularly important for me to be doing this because I am Filipino, and seeing these kinds of collaborations take place between the Philippines, where I was born, and Canada, which is what I call home now, is really heartening. These screenings are a testament to the power of connection, inventiveness, and creativity as we prove once more that our capacity to create together is limitless. Led by artists, educators, and researchers, Professor Julius Manapul and Natalie Wahlberger from OCAD University, Professors John Javier Chavez and Roberto Ang from Mapua University, and Dr. Marissa Largo from NASCAD, Narratives Through Global Space 2021 showcases these series of 10 experimental short films from creators around the world. 10 Mapua University students in the Philippines collaborated with 10 creators from OCAD University, hailing from Canada, Portugal, Mexico, Iran, India, Hong Kong, China, and South Korea. These narratives bring together a variety of talent across various domains, from filmmakers, visual artists, digital artists, animators, photographers, writers, and musicians with diverse experiences to respond to issues of gender, sexuality, religion, language, and identity through global space. All of this during a pandemic. Despite time zone differences, distance, and of course the current isolation and different contexts in each of these spaces caused by that pandemic, these creative thinkers and makers have defied obstacles through daily virtual connections. These 20 creators were not able to meet in person during the production of this project, but their ideas, passions, and visions have collided into this one collaborative force. So sit back, turn off your cell phones, and enjoy this outstanding show of talent. Congratulations to all of you students who participated in this event, in this series. And it's really remarkable to be able to see the work that you have produced during these such difficult and uncertain times. And I know that you audience members out there will really enjoy the show.
Thank you for that intro, Anna. The first film we will be screening, entitled Tu and Ako, Ikaw and Yo, You and Me, by Cisneros Alavez and Samantha Buso. In this seemingly personal short film, we observe the lives of two artists, one Mexican-Canadian and one Filipino, who are oceans apart. As they go through their lives during a pandemic, the differences and parallels of daily life are drawn between confinement and home routines, with meals prepared and eaten, a walk outside the neighborhood, habituals actions, interactions with daily objects, the time spent alone, and loved ones are just few of the things that may confess bits of the culture that they are part of, capturing the scenes in a more personal and intimate settings where ordinary actions and common objects gradually instills the idea of how important these are as a facet for our identity, as it may subtle reveal overlooked portions of who we are as humans in the vastness of the world we live in, despite often unconsciously losing ourselves in the thought that people from across the globe are far and separated. We then might realize from these simplicities that we have more in common than we think. Once again, I introduce you to and ako, ikaw, and yo, you, and me.
It is a strange feeling to wake up every day
under the circumstances like the ones that we're living today. Your surroundings become something more than just a home.
Acts of choosing what to wear, taking a shower, and making your bed are more than just an everyday pattern. It is a sign that you're still alive.
En estas condiciones, aprecias lo que tienes y a veces lo que no. Y sigues con tu día donde haces conexiones de tu adorada tierra. Y recreas esos olores y sabores que te hacen recordar esos pasos que te dejaron huellas en el alma, para alimentarla una vez más.
Nagpapatuloy ka sa pang-araw-araw na gawa, kung saan nalilito ka na sa paulit-ulit na pangyayari. Ngunit kung ikaw ay mapalad, makakahanap ka ng mga sandali na pupuno sa iyong puso. Hindi lamang ang mga ginagawa mo ang makakapagsabi kung sino ikaw. Ngunit ito rin ay nasa ginagamit at pumapaligid sa iyo, na siyang sumasalamin sa iyong paniniwala.
Si ves muy atentamente, tengo una profunda relación con lo que tengo y con lo que hago. Aunque hay veces que en lo más ordinario atesoramos con quién estamos. A pesar de que repetimos acciones rutinarias, seguimos construyendo nuestros sueños. Aunque contemos con las pérdidas tan grandes en esta pandemia. Mom, I hope you can take care of my cousin Kenny.
Magpapatuloy tayo. Maghahanap ng bagong hangin. Papatatagin ang ating kaisipan. Kasama ang ugat kung saan tayo nagmula.
It's actually good. My handbags. Isabel, my mom's mom, and that's me. Okay, that's my dad.
You have to live in the present.
Without forgetting those who are no longer with us. And
And
be
be
grateful
grateful that we have
One more day.
In our next film, entitled Lola Popo, This Is Everything I Didn't Say by Agnes Wong and Angelica C. Linera. Popo, I miss you. Lola, please don't forget me. Here is what I never said to you. Set respectively in the Philippines and Hong Kong, filmmakers Angelica Linera and Agnes Wong each composed a quiet letter to their grandmothers in this nuanced portrait of the two older women expressing the sentiments they never had the opportunity to say. Fragmented memories, unhealed wounds, and secrets are explored in this cathartic experimental short film about longing. Similar yet different, the two grandmother-granddaughter narratives unfolds to reveal the current situations of the two families, lingering amidst the complex emotions and deep sincerity from the two granddaughters' hearts. Feelings of longing and heartache are expressed through subtle and delicate imagery juxtaposed against moments of ambiguous questions and texts posed through handwritten messages. The two filmmakers navigate their way through grief, guilt, healing, and gratitude in the duration of this experimental short as they explore these unfamiliar feelings both visually and narratively. Once again, I introduce you Lola Popo. This is Everything I Didn't Say.
She was born in a province in the Philippines, 6 of 7 children. She is part of a big family, and it was a common thing way back during her time.
She grew up in Hong Kong, the eldest of 3 children. It was still a time when sons were preferred over daughters, and she wasn't given the opportunities or privileges her brother had. But she was very talented and pursued an art education for herself despite it being difficult.
She finished high school but never went to college. Her parents cannot afford to send them all to a university. But still, she was determined to continue life.
She loved classical music and doing things differently from others. She got married at the young age of 22 and had her first child in the same year.
She loves dancing cha-cha and always forces everyone to dance with her. At the age of 21, she found her forever dancing partner, and they were blessed with 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls.
She was a working mother and created her own comic series that year. She was a feminist, and her female-oriented comics became hugely successful.
She is a stay-at-home mom. She dedicated most of her time taking care of her children and serving God through church. She also survived a long-distance relationship when her husband has to work abroad for almost 25 years.
She taught her daughters to love wholeheartedly, so my mother taught me the same. She loved us a lot, yet she was never fully content with her life, as though she was longing for something she couldn't quite grasp. I didn't know what she was looking for when I was younger, and to this day I still don't know the answer.
She's the most selfless person I know. She would let us use her kitchen, sleep in her bed, and even switch a television channel, even though her favorite show is on. She always wants us to be happy.
Hong Kong was still a British colony at the time, and would remain so until I was born. She loved Western culture and new things, including the Scoopy doll she brought with her paycheck that remained by her side for the rest of her life.
Life was simple back then. She makes sure that we would celebrate every holiday and birthdays as a family. She loves to cook, experiment new recipes, and host gatherings at their house. She puts a lot of energy and love in the things that she does, and that inspired me a lot.
She never stopped creating and constantly encouraged me to draw when I was young. She told me to be brave last year when I shared with her my fears and worries. I was upset with her at the time because I thought she did not bother to understand me. She could not understand, but she did her best to love me all the same. But perhaps her telling me to be brave was an encouragement for everything that was about to happen, even though none of us knew what was coming.
She always tells the story about how she took care of us when me and my cousins were younger. She values us so much that she remembers every single detail of our life. Our time of birth, ex-boyfriends' names, celebrity crushes, and more. I never truly understand why she puts a room for these little details on her head. For me, it was such a waste of time. But little did I know, as time passed by, she wouldn't be able to open and visit those little rooms in her head again. Ever again. I tried to look for the keys, hoping that I could help her. But the doctor said, "I am sorry, but it is too late." She may never remember anything, but I still have a lot to say to her.
I felt as though everything was in mid-sentence when she left us, as if I asked her a question and was still awaiting her answer. I never got her reply, but I still have a lot to say to her. Popo, this is everything I didn't say.
Lola, this is everything I didn't say.
There's a lyric that's been on my mind lately. It goes, "The more things change, the more they stay the same." And I never really understood it, but on the day you left, I was almost shocked at how heartlessly the world seemed to carry on as usual. It just felt so cruel.
You still love visiting us at our home and even talking to us. It all looks almost the same, just like before, but the conversations were different now. Are you already in college? What's the name of your mom? How many siblings do you have again? How old are you? I never knew that the simplest and easiest questions could cause someone's heart to be shattered.
Growing up, I imagined your presence in so many important events in my life. In those scenarios, you're always happy and proud of me. I guess I never thought that those thoughts would remain as daydreams, just floating around in my mind.
I've always been motivated to do good in life because you said that seeing us achieving our dreams little by little will be the happiest days of your life. But now, I am slowly achieving my dreams, but you wouldn't remember any of this.
Nearly every summer I had when I was young, my family and I traveled back to Hong Kong to spend time with family there. My grandparents mostly. It was mostly for them. It was a childhood of warm summer nights and crowded family gatherings, and Hong Kong became a very important part of my identity.
Life becomes better for me growing up because I know that whatever happens, I have someone who I can run to and tell my stories, whether it's a happy story or not. My grandparents seems always to know how to lift a heavy pain on my shoulder. With them being around made me look forward to a brighter tomorrow.
Today I took the bus, and as I looked out the window, the places I grew up to become familiar with felt slightly different, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I don't know why.
You went to our house again this morning, and when I asked you why you decided to drop by, you said that you cannot remember. I just smiled, and you smiled back.
There will be more difficult days, I know, and I'm so sorry that you still had to continue to worry about me, that to you, I was still a child lacking in so many aspects. You told me I wasn't brave enough, that I had become very unfamiliar to you.
Our days in the future will be the same. I know that there will be no more chance for you to remember who I am and what I meant to you.
I never got the chance to make it up to you. Perhaps it's not my fault not realize how fleeting our time together was when I was a kid. But part of me still feels like I took too much for granted back then.
I felt bad for all the moments that I find your stories annoying and repetitive. Because I didn't know that those kinds of moments are the moments that will never happen again.
The calls from you that I missed, the messages I forgot to reply to. I suddenly remembered all of them so clearly, and each one of them hurt so much.
If I could hear just your stories one more time, one more time, I promise to laugh at all the jokes that you'll tell and listen to every single word that you'll say with all my heart.
I hope you're well. I hope you're happier. The most unthinkable, unbelievably impossible things happened recently in the world, and I often wonder what you would say if you're here with us. You wouldn't possibly believe it.
I know you're confused with what's happening around you, but I promise to hold your hand and to take care of you. And even if I have to introduce myself to you 100 or even 1,000,000 times, I will, and I will gladly do it. And I promise to be the person that you've always wanted me to be, and happy.
I promise you that I will try my hardest to take care of the rest of our family.
Patawad, salamat, mahal na mahal kita, at namimiss kita.
婆婆，我真係好掛住你啊！
Wow, such powerful narratives from today. Now we will follow and have a discussion live with the creators. And if you browse through the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A portion. If you have any question, please type your questions on the question box. And all discussants. First, we have Luis Cisnero Alavez. Luis Cisnero is a non-binary Mexican-Canadian artist born in Mexico City, who currently resides in the cities of Belleville and Toronto, Ontario, Canada. As being part of these two cultures, Z explores the ideas of land, race, immigration, identity, family dynamics, and queerness. Here, diaspora experiences are reflected in her work by using figurative symbols and self-portraits, creating narratives of multiculturalism. Louise predominantly works in sculpture and painting, but Z also works with film, where Z renders themes of Mexican and Canadian culture, highlighting her self-identity. Z has won awards and shown her art internationally. Next, Samantha Elisabuso is a Filipino multimedia art student specializing in video at Mapua University. She lived in Riyadh for 7 years, where her interest in arts grew, using films, books, and music as a means of comfort while living far from home became the catalyst for her to venture outside painting and drawing to explore more art forms. As of now, her work are mostly digital with inspirations from contemporary art. Samantha also firmly believes that art is ever growing and artists must not limit themselves. Thus, her future goal is to create auditory and visual compelling stories that are ambiguous, general, and abstracted, which tackles topics of social issues, culture, and identity. In the next film, we have Agnes Wong. Agnes Wong is a multidisciplinary designer focusing on an integrated practice of digital and moving image, photography, graphic design, text, and print matter. Her work is influenced by fragmented narratives, archiving histories, displacement, and intergenerational connections. Influenced by her own experience of uncertainty and ambiguity growing up as a Hong Kong-born Canadian, she tries to understand the fragmented pieces of her life and personal identity, exploring the narratives and histories that exist. Agnes and more of her work can be found online at Agnes Doublu at format.com or on her Instagram at Agnes Doubleu. Next, we have Angelica C. Lanera. Is a student filmmaker based in the Philippines. She discovered her passion for filmmaking at a young age and now creates films that aims to educate people with topics such as the LGBTQ realities of families and in the Philippines and lives and lives of people with disabilities. She also gets some ideas from her films, from her own life experiences. Now, Angel works part-time as a production associate at a local production house from Manila, Philippines, and that creates digital advertisements, short films, and music videos. And our guest panelist faculty member, JJ Lee. JJ Lee is an equal opportunity operator who explores the intersection of Chinese and Canadian culture in mixed media paintings and drawings. Lee has exhibited extensively in both public institutions, example Vancouver Art Gallery, and artist-run centers across the country. Recently at the Asian Arts Alliance, Philadelphia, curated by A. Louise Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, Lee is the recipient of several awards, both for her individual work, examples Canada Council, Ontario Arts Council, RBC New Canadian Painting, Asian Canadian Artist Fund, and her collaborative work with dancers S. Liska and S. Lee, and with the Drawing Board Collective with Natalie Wahlberger and Amy Schwartz. Lee's work is in public RBC York University, Canada Art Council, Bank, and private collections in Canada and the US. She is included in the Magenta Foundation Carte Blanche Painting, a survey of contemporary Canadian painters. Ms. Lee is an associate professor of contemporary issues of representation in the Faculty of Arts at OCAD University. So I welcome and I introduce everyone in the panel. Just turn on your mic and I'll start it off to you, JJ.
Hi, everyone. First of all, congratulations to all of you on your amazing and moving films. I was quite impressed by how poetic they all were. So I just had a few questions, and I'll just start them off one by one, and feel free, whoever wants to answer. Okay. I noticed that both films speak about loss and reflection. Do you think that the pandemic has made people even more attuned to loss?
Buenos dias. Good evening in Manila. Good morning in Canada. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much, JJ Lee, for this amazing question. I think especially in these times where it has been a lot of loss and a lot of grief because of the pandemic, I think that's what I have seen, more empathy and more connections between people. And since I experienced also a loss in this pandemic, I think it is something that we wanted to say about it and to contribute to that, and that it is something that we share globally, and it was important for us to put it in the film and draw those connections between human beings I think with Agnes and Angelica's film, we see that too, that are like, even that you belong to different cultures, or even sometimes that you are an immigrant in another country, you have more things in common generally. And yes, grief, it is something that I've seen that I like, yeah, it has brought us together.
Thank you so much. Would anybody else like to add on to that?
Good evening and good morning, everyone. Yeah, I definitely agree with what Louise said. I think people to begin with have been quite self-aware of the reality of losing, but the pandemic definitely put more emphasis on the cruel nature of life and death, because everyone is involved and anyone can fall victim to this pandemic. So regardless of who you are as an individual. And added to the fact that we've had this some sort of isolation period in which a lot of us have self-reflected about all the loss that we've experienced. So yeah, we've become more empathetic and sympathetic and sensitive to the gravity of the situation that we have. And also, those who have not experienced loss of a close relative may have had because of this pandemic. So definitely, people have opened their eyes wider to this matter.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you so much.
I agree with everything that everyone said. And again, thank you for your wonderful question. I personally believe that with the pandemic, it has actually kind of opened our eyes more to feelings of gratitude and being truly thankful for what we actually have. Just being present, alive, and, with our loved ones, if possible, is really already just the best that we can have. And I think that both our film and Louise and Samantha's film really celebrates that.
I agree.
Yeah, and hello, good evening or good morning to everyone. I definitely agree with what they said. I think this is the moment in our lives wherein we appreciate human connection and human lives more, because it is something that we all really miss, and less of the material things. Because since we miss human connection in human lives, it has made us reflect on how important it is. And the deaths because of the virus really impacted and put heavy feeling in our hearts, because even though we don't know the people that died because of the virus, we have this feeling of sadness, because every time that the number of people or the number of deaths because of the virus has been flashed on the news and it's increasing every day, it's like, okay, how many people have lost a family member again today? So it's something that we really reflect on, and that moment in our lives really made us appreciate connections with people, even though it's just online or in person.
That's a really good point. In some ways, this terrible virus has brought a lot of people together, and it made us recognize all of our humanity. Okay, my next question is about collaboration. How did it feel to collaborate with someone on the other side of the world? And what kind of strategies did you use to help create a seamless single film? They were so well edited together. I love the sort of back and forth dialogue parallels that were happening. So what similarities and differences, besides time zones, did you notice in your process of making it?
I'll answer this one first. I think that truly what was really the biggest challenge for us at first was to really open up. It was a really scary experience, just completely trusting ourselves and collaborating totally on a project with someone that we've actually never met from the other side of the world was really intimidating. And but actually, thankfully, Angel and I, we made our first introductions, and then we jumped right into very vulnerable and scary topics, very painful topics, and about trauma and family for the two of us. And actually through that, it really propelled our interaction and our communication forward. Just immediately, just through sharing our troubles and fears and whatnot with each other, we instantly bonded very well. And I think that was truly an interesting part. Like, I wouldn't have thought to have done something so brave, but it really kind of sparked a connection, even virtually through amidst a pandemic, actually. Yeah, and I think that communicating for us, we used a ton of online methods, right, Angel?
Yes, that's true. And also, I think I would like to also give our shout out and thanks to our professors who really paired us very well. I actually have no idea who I'll be pairing, but they really did a great job on that. And I think at first I was really scared to collaborate with someone who I didn't know. And also, I think that we have different language because all of us, the four of us, Luis, Sam, Agnes, and I, English is not our mother tongue. It's our second language. So it is scary to, you were wondering, will I be able to express what I, because it's already difficult to express your creativity. Now you have to describe it and express it to someone you haven't met and you're not sure if what is the capability of your speaking in English. So it's scary, but it's something that it is worth it. And I'm grateful because I was paired with Agnes, who's not very creative, not only very creative, but very understanding as well. So it's really a great experience to have.
Thank you.
I would like to add to Agnes and Angelica, the topics that they're saying is we experience it too. And I think as we said, Julius and Natalie created this project so wonderfully, and with all the meetings and the way that they arrange everything, I think it was really, really amazing and special. But I will add also, I was so lucky to have Samantha as a partner. I keep saying that it was my first time collaborating, and I was terrified because I didn't know if we will be so different, or will we be like, like have like totally different concepts, and how do you agree, or how do you even consider the same things? But with Samantha, she was so understanding, and she was so committed to the project, and I think that we have a lot of chemistry, and it was so nice to collaborate, and it was a beautiful experience, and we had a great communication. So yeah, it was wonderful.
I have the same sentiments. Yeah, at first I definitely felt anxious since I would be working with a complete stranger, given that working with someone you know already still causes small disagreements. So how much more if you're working with a stranger? So, but I'm really grateful for Luis since you're very open to ideas and understanding. Our communication is great despite it being online. So yeah, personally, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but when I'm working with someone, I tend to hold myself back with what I disagree with to avoid possible conflicts. But Luis unknowingly taught me to become more open and honest, and that constructive criticism is very important in the process of creating to better your work and improve your work. So I usually admire that part of Luis. So I think that's one of our biggest strategies is to never disregard or leave one or the other's ideas, but find kind of like a way to integrate both while making sure that we both agree on something that we want this, and that we are passionate about what we're working on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, peer learning is one of the most powerful and effective ways to learn. Learn through our differences. Okay, and my last question is, which I'm really intrigued about, is what qualities in your subject would you say inspired you the most?
I would like to go first. I'm sorry. Believe it or not, one of the things that I was looking forward of this project, it was actually the Filipino aspect. I work with a lot of Filipino people when I started in this country, and I knew some Filipino people in Mexico that were Filipino Mexican, and I know the similarities that we have in our culture, especially the colonialism, the aspects of food, and so many cultural things that we have in common. And I was looking forward, and that's one of the reasons that I applied. So I was really lucky to be accepted, and I was looking forward to that. And it's one of the things that I also wanted to even learn even more. So I think the themes that I wanted like to touch more in this project, it was the cultural aspects, the commonalities that we have between Mexico and Canada, and also the Philippines. And it was one of the things that I think I wanted to even explore more. So land, for me, it is really important, especially being an immigrant and being Mexican, being Canadian. It was important. It's part of my practice, and it's something that I was so interested to even see the perspective of Samantha, what it meant to be a Filipino, and how a Filipino artist was like their experience and share their culture. And it's something that it always impressed me so much. Like Samantha was so generous in sharing her experience and being so honest, and it was something that I felt. And also the cool thing about this project is I got even more by seeing other people's projects, because this is something really global, and we saw different people in the films too, and different cultures. And Agnes and Angelica share even more through their film, so I learned even more, and that was so beautiful to see and witness.
I think for me, for sure, I definitely agree with pretty much everything Louise said about getting to know a new culture and getting to meet everyone, all these different people, all these wonderful creatives in this time where we're stuck at home and we can't really meet anyone. For me, I also was very interested in the idea of the challenge. The topic, the prompt was about global narratives. My personal work has tackled serious and personal narratives, but always in a more indirect and abstracted sense. So I was really interested in seeing how working with someone who does specialize in film and film writing, and how together we can kind of push and create a different perspective, a different narrative with our two cultures and diasporic backgrounds and all sorts of that combined together. And I think it was just like a really fun and difficult challenge to express ourselves so openly and honestly. Well, for me, for the first time, it's the first time I've ever done this. So I'm really thankful and grateful for this experience and to have worked with all these wonderful people.
Yeah, I agree with Agnes and also with Louise, the culture aspect of this film. And also, I also like to thank our other students that is involved in this project, because they were so generous in sharing a part of them. And I think despite of the cultural differences, my favorite quality about our project is that the part wherein there's acceptance in the story. Louise, I really like a line from Louise and Sam's film, like, you need to keep moving forward and look for new air. Because for our part, like for me and Agnes' film, that is, for me, the only thing that we have to do is to accept. And that is something that would really also, I think, inspire other people, that whatever situation you are in, we need to accept it and move forward, because there's a brighter day coming. So that is something that really touched me, and really, I really ponder about it. Like, this is why I was writing my letter. I was like, the only thing that to do for me is to accept it. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree to what everyone said. I think my favorite quality about this is the collaborative aspect itself, because this is done only through online. Everything is done through just communicating through calls, messages, but we are able to accomplish it. And I think it's such a rewarding thing to see your film and everyone's film become successful, and you're able to put it out and for everyone to watch and appreciate. And also, we have limited resources, equipment. I think it's a good learning process to also realize that as fellow artists and aspiring artists, we should not hinder ourselves, limit ourselves from creating just because we don't have enough resources or materials to use. But it's also good to remind ourselves that art is not always necessarily about the quality of the materials, but the quality of the message that you are trying to send to the audience. Yeah. So.
Wow, thank you for those great answers. It's so true how even everyone in here and the students, how limiting it is considering the situation that we're in. And it's so true, Samantha, that if you have a message, you can create work no matter what you're given with. And you were given with any kind of, I don't know, a cell phone camera, anything, you can create any kind of narrative. And it's great to kind of see the fruition of everyone's work and how polished they look, I mean, no one could tell that, yes, there's some lacking of accessibilities in materials in them, but they were just really rendered and executed very, very well. And yet such very personal, touching moments. And during the pandemics, I think these kind of narratives is so important, so crucial to be viewed in society, to kind of feel like they're not alone. And that's what happens when I watch them. I feel so not alone. I feel somehow connected to the creators, to the artists. And I think that's what a good storytelling does. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you connected within those narratives. There's two questions that popped up before I move into the other faculties, such as John and Natalie, if they have any questions. First, we have Lilia Leon. Maybe this was answered already, but if you could briefly expand on it. I am so deeply touched. Thank you. My question to the artist is, how did they collaborate on their film content? So maybe this is like a technical thing, right? How did you guys exchange, or who edit what, or how's from this to distance? And also like thinking about time zones, right? There's only a specific time zones where it all works out, which is like right now, because it's a 12-hour difference, right? So it's like between 8 and 11 p.m. or a.m. So Luis, you wanna start off by answering? Yeah, any kind of technical, even if there's any, did you face any hurdles?
Yeah, well, the thing it is, like, I think the process, it was really interesting because we started with our script and I start chatting what we have in common, and then things changed because the pandemic started affecting even more. So things started like closing up. We couldn't go outside, so we have to change our plan. And you're right, the time difference, it was really affecting us too, because we only have a certain window like to meet and to talk. And sometimes it was confusing too, because I'm so bad in terms of like a time and maths. So I was like, sometimes it was 12 different hours. Sometimes it was 13 because we changed also the time zone too. And it was like so confused and things like that. But it was definitely challenging. But again, communication, so much communication we have between Samantha and I, and come back and forward and negotiate and being good communicator. I think it helped us a lot. So it was one of the challenges that we faced, and change strategies of what we have. Sometimes like of equipment, sometimes like even of like resources. Like again, we couldn't even go film outside sometimes. So, or like the ways that we were filming here, we didn't have like anyone. So it was everything doing yourself and filming yourself using your phone. So yeah, absolutely. So it was, in those terms, it was again just so much based on what we could do. But yeah.
Yeah, Samantha, your thoughts on that? And I guess the footage, you guys do a share file, right? To share each other's footage when you guys are editing.
Yeah, I think communication was that was our biggest I think instrument in how we were able to put out our film and the way it is. I think when Luis and I started, we had such a I guess, big concept. There was a lot of things that we wanted to put in our narrative film: culture, identity, some social issues and such. It was so big that it was hard to achieve. And then we had a talk and then decided that why don't we just go for something simple yet meaningful? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it did the trick. Absolutely. Thank you. And Agnes and Angel, and I know the time difference is not as drastic between the two, both of you. Uh-huh.
That's true. That's true. Because Agnes and I has the same time zone, but Agnes has classes in Canada time, so it's also still quite difficult to meet. But I think for me and Agnes, we were able to come up with this content because of our openness and willingness to be vulnerable to each other, because it's something too personal. So I remember on the first and second meeting, we were like, okay, let's try to talk about the similarities of Filipino and Chinese culture and something like that. And then we end up, Agnes told me that the real reason why she was in Hong Kong because her grandmother died. So I was like, I can totally relate to the feeling of losing someone, but the only difference is my grandmother is still here, but she can't remember me anymore. And I think also a few challenges that we had along the way was that not only the pandemic hindered us from, eating each other, but during the production of the film, I catch the virus. I had COVID during the production of our film, so it's quite yeah, people were surprised. Yeah, I had the virus while shooting the film, so I'm really thankful for Agnes for being so patient and understanding during that time. So it's a challenge, but we were able to surpass it. We were able to find a solution with it because we were so open and willing to make this work. We need to make this work.
Wow. Well, thank God you have good health right now. You're with us, Angel. It's good. Agnes.
Yeah, I was so worried, Angel, when you were sick. That definitely impacted our production a little bit. But I think looking back, one of the things that I'm most thankful for, I have to name drop Google Docs, because the shared function really saved and basically created our entire script. We wrote the script, the initial ideas, like the plans of what we want to say to our grandmothers, and like our basic initial framework for the film through a shared Google Docs that we could totally access it asynchronously. And then throughout, looking back, reading each other's writing and then reflecting, giving ourselves time. I think that time and space was really, really helpful for reflection, to make thoughtful reflections and adjustments and really kind of pin down what we wanted to say, to make sure it wasn't excessive, or we made sure we didn't forget anything that we wanted to say. All that I think was just really crucial, and just really starting with a foundation of a script and then developing our visuals and subsequent imagery and what we wanted to showcase visually came afterwards. Everything was just down to the very core message and our sentiments.
Thank you. It's good to hear how the collaboration kind of find different facets and ways to really exchange materials and still create that cohesiveness. Like watching all of this film feels like all of you were in the same room together working at it. I think it's just mind-blowing to watching the projects and knowing that none of these creators have ever even met in person. One more question at the question board from Sofia Velosa. Congratulations on your beautiful films. How was the process of going through painful feelings and putting yourselves in such vulnerable positions to create your films? They're really, really great questions. Let's start off with Luis and Samantha.
Thank you, Sofia, for that beautiful question. For me, in Mexican culture, to let somebody go inside your home or like invite somebody home, it is really important. So for me, to show those moments of vulnerability, even when you're cooking, or even when, like, you know, when you're eating, or even your bedroom. It is something that is so personal. And I think the pandemic in that way helped a little bit, especially with the Zoom meetings and things like that. We are like now used to just see like people's homes, or like to see in the background, like, you know, especially here in Canada, I've seen like a lot of advertising about like how many people, like, you know, they have seen even like their families, pets, and like that kind of life. So for me, in that way, it was it normalized it a little bit, but I was a little bit anxious and nervous about that. And then things changed because what happened, the same a little bit of a similar situation with Agnes. My family member, my cousin, passed away during we were filming this January, and it was unexpected. She got sick, but she was doing really well, and then, like, unfortunately, she had to get hospitalized, and unfortunately, she passed away. And it was something that impacted me so much, and that's the reason we wanted to put it in the film, because we wanted to make a tribute. And it was a reminder of what the world also it is living through too, because in that way, asking, like, remember the first question that I usually said, do you feel that you're not alone in when you have a loss like that, and going through that? I think it was really hard, but thanks to Samantha to be so sensitive about it too, and understanding, because we didn't plan that. And we wanted to add it to the film, and also to the entire, I will say, cast of the project, even the professors and everyone. It was understanding of what I was going through, and it was a little bit emotional. So, but I think that we wanted to give that message of like a tribute for everyone who has lost somebody, not just for COVID, but like in these circumstances, because that is something that happened to me too, that you lose people, not just because of COVID, but also like continues and happens. So yeah.
It's great. It's very brave of you to add that, and giving of you to add that into the narrative. And it just made it this kind of impactful, powerful message where, why are we doing this in the first place? Well, we do have one chance, right? This is it. And I think what resonated with both of your films is it really puts us in our place and realizing, why did I become an artist again? Why am I doing this? What message am I trying to say? It's so powerful, and yet it's so indicative within your narrative, because at the end, it's like you mentioned to the audience about having one more chance, waking up the next day, right? That is most of the time we take for granted. Oh, I woke up. Great. You know, sorry to interrupt, but Samantha, your points of view.
I think out of the four of us, in terms of vulnerability in the storytelling, I had the least in terms of what I showed. But Louise opening up to me about it, it's impactful in a way that it makes you realize to be more understanding, and to show support in this situation that we are in right now. It is not the time to be selfish, but to be more supportive to the emotions of others. And I think vulnerability is such an important aspect in creating art, because it creates human connection, and it also evokes honest emotions from people. That's why I think it's inspiring when an artist is able to showcase their vulnerability in the art that they create, because they're not just doing something that can be categorized as art, but they're creating something that can help others recognize, deeply express, and make sense of their emotions and identities in the world that we live in. And yeah, I definitely felt that when I was talking with Luis, and he was sharing the things that he felt.
Nicely said, Samantha. Thank you. Next, Agnes and Angel. Wow. the emotional aspect of the project. I have to say, I was getting really emotional when I was watching your film because it's everyone can relate to it. And I start thinking about my grandparents and my own family and the future of losing them. It's really, it's a humbling experience. And I guess I'm just so drawn towards films that really puts our perspective into context in our daily lives. It's great. So I pass that question towards the both of you. The emotional aspect, how did you guys dealt with it? And I know sometimes it could be very difficult. Was there ways you went through the hurdle? And I guess having the symbiotic of the pairing of the both of you gives it that somehow that strength in a way.
I definitely agree, Julius, with the fact that we were together really made me feel less lonely and like sharing my fears and my thoughts. I think that healing is such a long process. Even just now when I was watching our film, I also cried. I have tissues here. Writing the script, every time I would tear up. Editing, it was also very emotional. I think that the process in itself was quite cathartic. Just really putting down my really abstract feelings and all the feelings of guilt, worry, regret, all of that, just really narrowing it down to letters, black and white, really helped. I think I agree. And I do encourage anyone who also wants to kind of express their feelings. It's good to write it out, write a letter. It's definitely a healing, powerful process. And yeah, just share it with others. I definitely felt vulnerable at first, but then hearing the response, not only from Angel, but from everyone in this, in our group, in our project, just hearing all that feedback and hearing everyone say like, oh, I also related to that, and hearing everyone's stories. People messaged me afterwards, sharing their experiences to me. And I think all of that was just so helpful. So yeah, support, and just keep on going.
Yeah, that's true. I totally agree with Agnes, because me too. I was crying before we opened our cameras. I was like, "No, you need to stop crying. You'll be talking." So it's really an emotional film, and I think what really kept, made us be vulnerable, open, is because actually, honestly, one of the struggles that Agnes and I had while writing the script was that how do we end it? How do we end it? Because we don't want it to sound so sad. So sad. It is sad, but we kind of want to give this sort of life is still a celebration. We celebrate the lives of those people because that is the thing that they have left with us. And so I think that what made us easier to share our stories, because yes, it is sad, but their lives are worth celebrating, and these are the lives that are worth to be shared. So, and it can help to inspire other people to continue and to move forward. That's it.
Well said. Thank you so much, Angel and Agnes. Such powerful narratives. I believe, Natalie, do you have a question for the group?
Yes, it's actually really good timing. My question kind of follows up on some of what you've expressed. And first, I want to say thank you again. I've seen the films, but to see them again, every time I see them, there's something, some more nuance to it. And I'm specifically interested in the curatorial positioning of the two films under the theme of be/longing, belonging, and hauntings. So Dr. Marissa Largo and Julius had curated this very specifically, and it's one of my favorite pairings, if I can say that, about these really, poignant films. So the word belonging is nuanced. It has a kind of tone of sadness in the word longing. And it really speaks to all of us, at this time. as a sort of general underlying hum for our experience in a pandemic. But you've expressed this so sensitively in these films and sort of, personalized it. The theme further, I think, unfolds in the notion of hauntings, which speaks to a past, present, and a future presence. And it's a presence that remains with us as we move back into the world from the pandemic, but also a presence that comes specifically from loss. Haunting speaks to this elusiveness of memory, and that loss is a presence that takes shape over time, which is what you were speaking about, how loss can go from, a kind of sadness to an honoring of our experiences and our loved ones. So I guess my question to all of you is, in reflecting back on the last 10 months and the work that you've done together, where do you think the work will take you when you do more work, when you create more films? And I'll put it out to all of you. You were such a cohesive group. You had conversations before this panel. You discussed. You made notes. It was wonderful because it comes together so well. I want to suggest you could maybe make a film together, but anyway, you can answer individually.
Yeah, definitely, all four of you.
Shall I speak? Yeah, I think this project really just opened up so many possibilities. Just not only, well, maybe I'll speak about like technically first. I now realize the opportunities for collaboration and how we really, really aren't limited to, well, anything, basically. You can just make a film with someone else with your computers, and that can all be done virtually at home. And I think that just thematically, it really opened up many doors for me. Just learning it was a learning process on how to express myself without being too direct. Like Natalie said, it's all about nuance and subtlety. I think that it's just a really good learning process that I can eventually develop other works among this theme. I really personally love to make a series from this theme alone that would just take place beyond film and take other multidisciplinary mediums and all the other sorts. Yeah. How about you, Angel?
Yeah. Let's go. Let's make more films. I think for me, it's there's always gonna be a story that you can tell to people, because this is a topic that I never knew that I would tell. Because I never knew people tell, because it's so different from what Agnes and I first talked about, that topic. It's so different. And then when it popped up, yeah, it's a great story. It's a great way to express your feelings and everything. So I think that what really would help me keep moving forward is that you would always have stories to tell. So never stop making films and telling stories. How about you, Luis?
For the curiosity of the audience, what was your first idea if it wasn't this? Just so they know.
Well, it definitely was about family. I think we agreed upon that. We also talked about our comparing our two different cultures and ideas of diaspora and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was a little bit too ambitious. And then we just really kind of went straight to the point into something that we just wanted to say that was simple and could be expressed more with more variation.
Yeah, that's true. Our first topic was so big, and then family is just a little bit part of it. So it focuses more on culture. So that's our first topic. And we ended up just prioritizing not just family, but specifically our grandmothers.
Thank you. Sorry, Luis. Yes.
I want to point out something that Samantha taught me, and I thought that is something that I take in with me. It is about like the importance of objects and how objects that we have, especially right now that we are spending so much time inside home, and we value and we see from different perspectives the objects that we have. And this can be even something really simple as just your bed or your home, or something like more complex, even something that you treasure so much, like even your art practice, or even something like things that you share with others, like meals, food, and it can be so much. And that relates so much also to the family dynamics that we have, and how even connect with other projects. Something that I like, to me, talking about objects, something that I just watched and I just discovered today, it is in Agnes and Angel's film. In, I think, Angel's grandmother's house, they have a tapestry at the background of the last dinner, and it's exactly the same one that my grandmother had in her house. So it's just like crazy. When I saw it, when I spotted it, I was like, what? You know, and it's those connections that you have through objects, and that we have, that I say even more about culture and the personal connection and things like that. And it's something Samantha brought into our film, and I was like amazed to learn even more. And that's the cool thing about collaborating with other artists, that things that you never thought, or things that you never view in that way, they help you. Like when you collaborate with another artist, like to see through their eyes and seeing through their culture and through their perspective. And it's amazing. So thank you, Samantha, for that, because yeah, to me, it was like, wow, totally different layer. So
I mean, I wouldn't have thought about this idea if it weren't for Louis' ideas as well. I was able to derive my idea from Louis' great ideas. I mean, these everyday objects and routines. What I had in mind, it prompts us to ask a question of what are the other roles do objects play in our daily lives, and aside from its practical purpose, and how do we look into the importance and gravity of this day-to-day mediocrity. So yeah, we were able to explore that, and with those just two simple questions, we were able to expound it, and we've become more self-aware that these objects are an extension of ourselves and how we lived and lived. And in terms of the collaboration, I think it's such a great opportunity for an artist to grow. And I think I just didn't learn from Luis. I learned from everyone, and seeing everyone's work. It's a great learning process for me. I was able to take a lot of insight from everyone's process of creating art. And I just want to say regarding Agnes and Angelica's films, I love how it's such a personal story and focuses on their beloved grandparents that as a watcher, I don't personally know. Yet as I was watching it, I became more attached to the story, regardless of whether a person have had a close relationship with their grandparents or not. You'll be able to relate to the vulnerabilities, the intergenerational connection, and how human it is to feel those overlapping emotions of being grateful, but also the regret. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to be able to see everyone's film.
Very well said, panelists. I'm just mindful of the time, but is there any last thoughts from Professor Lee or Professor Chavez or Professor Waldberger as a wrap up of this conversation?
Hi. This is already the second day of the presentation. And indeed, this project is not only a celebration of the artistry, the ingenuity, and the innovation of the students, but it is already starting to dawn on me that this project is also a celebration of multiculturalism. Although I'm looking at the pairings, like in the case of Luis and Sam, okay, somebody who comes from Mexico and then some from the Philippines, there's still something that binds them, the two of them together, like the Iberian and the Spanish ancestry. Okay. In the case of Agnes and Angel, though they are quite near geographically, okay, and both sharing the same Asian culture. But still, there's still some differences in the culture. And I would just like to ask them, just a very brief answer. How did you deal with the cultural differences between you?
I think I'll go first. I think for me and Agnes, Chinese and Filipino has always been somehow related. We have a Chinese town here in the Philippines, so there's quite a difference. But I think what really made it work is that you have to have respect with the person that you're collaborating with, and whatever culture you may have been, you have to respect whatever he or she, and be mindful of the things that you talk about or say to the person.
I don't think we actually had any hurdles in our communication. Rather, it was a lot of like learning. I was taught a few words in Filipino, and we just basically learned a lot about each other's cultures. Like, oh, that's how you say grandmother. Oh, that's how you explain this feeling. Like that's the word for this and that. And it was just a lot, like a really great exchange. And I think that was also just really what made it really fun and meaningful.
That's great. It's like a learning process for both of you guys, right? No, that's great. Does Luis and Samantha, do you have an answer from Professor Chavez's question about this cultural kind of understanding exchanges? And I know it's like Mexico and the Philippines both colonized by Spaniards. So there's those dualities of colonization.
To me, it was more like, how do you come to the table? And to me, it was more like the willingness to learn and the willingness to understand the other person and to think that you have more in common and than you realize, and then what do you expect? And that's, to me, it was the important thing. And what it helped, I think it helps so much. It is in Toronto is such a diverse city, and you always working with such like people from everywhere. So, and I think when you do that, like you're always knowing and getting to know people from everywhere, and you're open to know people and from different cultures and find more common things than the differences. And that was something that I was looking forward so much with Samantha, just to find what kind of music we like, what kind of like, food and different things. And we start with that. And I think from there we click, and then we build on that. And it was really amazing.
Yeah, the icebreaker between Luis and I was like, I asked, what's your favorite music and stuff? So I think those simple questions, it's when it comes to cultural differences, it's all about understanding with an open heart and an open mind. You have to learn how to appreciate, no matter how diverse it is, because we may have like similarities with our culture, but there's also still differences in it. So yeah, it's just you have to be less judgmental about everything that you interact or you talk with. It's about understanding and being appreciative.
And also, just to add on, we met with Professor John and Chavez, and he helped us also to even learn more about this. And it was really beautiful. That meeting, it was really nice. So thank you so much, Professor. And thank you so much for these questions, because it was something that I like. Again, we share so much, and it was really nice. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that question, Professor Chavez. I will leave it to JJ Lee. And any last comments towards what we've experienced, all of these topics of belongings and hauntings?
Well, this is a topic that's particularly close to my area of interest, being I was born and raised in Canada. My mom's from Hong Kong. My dad's from China. So I think that hyphenated diasporic space is really interesting. And also, one of my best friends is Filipino. So anyway, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for this amazing opportunity. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you for being present with us, JJ. We really appreciate it. We were, when we were thinking about the faculty, we were like, oh, yes, who's someone who could really understand and grasp what about the situation. What was you? So thank you so much for offering your time with us as a guest panelist. Well. With that said, I just want to congratulate all 4 students. And before we say the thank you and I pass it on to Natalie, make sure to tune in for tomorrow, where our topic will be kinships, symbols, and objects in film narratives. I'll take it. Natalie?
Thank you, Julius. I want to thank the audience for being here and sharing this with us. JJ Lee, I knew these films would really resonate with you and your experiences. Thank you to our filmmakers, Samantha Buso, Luis Cisneros Alavez, Angelica Laniera, Angel Wong, our faculty, Julius Manapul, and Dr. Marissa Largo, Professor Chavez, and Professor Ong. Our promotional partner today is Real Asian International Film Festival, and I'd like to thank Kelly Louis and Jasmine Gui. From OCAD IT, Renzi Guerin and Saida Akbari. At OCAD U Live, Adam Wendels. And for the office at OCAD that facilitated this collaboration, the Collaborative Online International Learning Office, Jasmine Cardenas Obanda and Jenny Sudik. And I'd also finally like to thank the Office of the President and specifically President Anna Serrano.
And I'd like to thank Professor Natalie Wahlberger.
Oh. Thanks, Julius.
Congratulations, guys. And we'll see you in the next 3 more days of screening. Take care.